Welcome back to the plenary session 1 in Abaruko Hall. We have concurrent sessions going on in other halls. We have my room and Mwina upstairs, outside upstairs. So please be sure that you're in the right room for these discussions. This is a Abaruko room. We have my room where space engineering, discussion on space engineering will be taking place, and astronomy and space science discussion is in Mwina room. Upstairs, on your left as you go out. Thank you very much. We are ready to begin a discussion on the implementation of the remote sensing and GIS technology in Vihiga County, which is setting pace for the county governments. The geographical information system. We are ready for that discussion right now. Before we go into that discussion, please, let's take a look at one more video as we introduce this session. Thank you very much, our media team.
Distinguished participants, I'm very pleased to address you today at this inaugural Kenya Space Expo and Conference 2022. Thank you to the organizers for inviting the UN Office for Outer Space Affairs to address this important event. It is encouraging to see more and more space-related activities organized in the African continent, underscoring that space exploration and use is becoming a truly global endeavor. The path of Kenya is an inspirational success story fueled by ambition as well as dedication and perseverance. Kenya Space Agency is progressing swiftly. It is becoming one of the leading actors in the country and in the continent, generating further interest to expand the national and regional space sector. This growing prominence will be vital in positioning the country in the African Space Agency for years to come, and will help nurture the use of space for sustainable development. UNOSA is happy to have contributed to this journey. The Access to Space for All initiative that we deliver in multi-stakeholder partnerships provides various types of support to member states, especially to build capacity for obtaining the benefits of space technology and its applications. Access to Space for All is part of the Space 2030 agenda, Space as a Driver of Sustainable Development, adopted last year. The agenda calls for reinforced cooperation and capacity building to boost local and national capacities in using space for the SDGs. Divided into 3 tracks, it allows us to provide unique opportunities in modified gravity conditions, satellite development, as well as space exploration. Through educational, hands-on, and open source efforts, we provide a truly comprehensive experience in accessing and utilizing the space environment. Currently, Access to Space for All offers 10 opportunities delivered jointly with international partners. Their delivery is closely aligned with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and applicants are obliged to do the same. The proposals we receive often tackle multiple SDGs. Kenya is a country that has utilized the opportunities of the Access to Space for All initiative strategically and effectively to develop its capacity in space and advance its national space program. In 2018, Kenya developed its first ever satellite through the Kibo-Q program, delivered in partnership with the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, JAXA. While the CubeSat designed and developed by the University of Nairobi has already completed its mission in 2020, the experience has proven to be a game changer. Kenya also diligently followed its obligations under the registration convention. It registered its satellite with the UN and also notified the Secretary General about its end of mission and re-entry to the atmosphere. The success in submitting quality applications was replicated in 2021. The ISON-SCOPE program, supported by the Keldysh Institute of Applied Mathematics, selected Kenya to receive a telescope for promoting and supporting space science research and outreach programs locally. In addition, a joint application of 3 African nations, including Kenya, was selected for a 1-year free-of-charge mission to utilize the Bartolomeo platform of Airbus on the International Space Station. This will further scale up technical capabilities and help address climate change in the region. Currently, we have the Hyper-GES opportunity open for applications. This unique cooperation with the European Space Agency offers the possibility of hypergravity experiments. We would like to invite Kenyan universities to apply. Allow me to also underscore that capacity building efforts at UNOOSA extend far beyond access to space for all. Our attention is also devoted to scaling up the earlier efforts. The Space Economy Project unpacks the complex topic of kickstarting a space sector and provides a roadmap to building a thriving space economy. We also assign importance to the sustainability of space operations. The Space Law for New Space Actors project breaks down the legal requirements and international responsibilities and helps nations develop national frameworks in compliance with the fundamentals of international space law. This holistic approach allows us to offer continuous support across the different steps of development. We are thrilled to see the fruits of our support in the successful history of the partnership between UNOOSA and Kenya. It gives us the motivation to keep delivering the benefits of space to everyone, everywhere. I hope to see many more joint efforts in the future, and I wish you all the very best going forward. UNOOSA aspires to help many more countries follow Kenya's steps as we remain eager to support such a pathway worldwide. I wish you all a productive event. Thank you.
A round of applause for that video presentation. Thank you so much, media team. I would like to alert the following panelists, get ready to come on stage for the next session. The Acting Director General, the Kenya Space Agency, Colonel Hilary Kipkosgei, Dr. Mohamed El-Kosi, the CEO, Egyptian Space Agency, Dr. Hailulu Shaba, the Director General, National Space Research and Development Agency, and Emmanuel Nkurunzinza, the Director General, Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development. Please get ready to come on stage for the next session. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenya, the County Government Act 2012 requires that counties establish a GIS, which is the Geographical Information System-based database system for provision of data for the development of those plans. Ladies and gentlemen, the people of this county that I'm going to introduce His Excellency in the next seconds are known for loving their cup of tea. We know that people of Vihiga County and a cup of tea and the thermos are in the same WhatsApp group. But as you will be learning, that is not the only thing they do. They've done a lot in regards to space science. So please help me welcome on stage His Excellency, the Vihiga County which is led by His Excellency Dr. Wilbur Otichilo, who has taken the lead in Kenya in setting up the All right, sound engineers, what happened? What just happened? Tutaongea hapo kando kwa tent. Anyway, please help me welcome His Excellency, the Governor of Vihiga County, Dr. Wilbur Otichilo, for his keynote address on the implementation of remote sensing and the GIS technology in Vihiga County. Please help me welcome Dr. Otichilo.
First, okay, let me try. First, I want to say I'm very happy hosted by Kenya Space Agency. One of the first people who really fought so hard to see to it that Kenya Space Agency is established. I moved the first motion in Parliament in 2009, a motion which sought to establish the Kenya Space Agency, and the motion was unanimously approved. From there on, we embarked on working on the presidential executive order, which I participated in very actively, and the order was finalized in 2016 and signed in 2017. So I have been involved in the process of formation of Kenya Space Agency for quite some time. I've also been instrumental in promoting remote sensing and geoinformation in this country. I was among the first directors and pioneers of Kenya department called Department of Resource Surveys and Remote Sensing. Before I got into politics, I was the Director General of Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development for Eastern and Southern Africa. When I became a member of Parliament in 2008, my agenda was to establish a GIS remote sensing laboratory for planning and decision making. I was the first member of Parliament to do so. And using that technology, we were able to implement the programs of CDF, money that is given to the constituencies in a very effective and efficient manner. And in 2015, I was declared the best MP in Kenya. In 2017, I contested to become a member of parliament, a governor for Vihiga County, and because of my good performance as a member of parliament, I was elected with a landslide. So when I became the governor for Vihiga County, I decided to continue with my work. And I established the first GIS satellite remote sensing laboratory in Kenya in 2018. So I'll be able to show you what we have been able to do. But because of constraints of time, we have already a booth out there. And I would invite most of you to visit our booth there. We have very interesting applications that we have done on use of remote sensing in resource management and planning. So let me take you through my presentation very quickly. That is a quote by Socrates, that man must rise above the earth to the top of the atmosphere and beyond, for only then will he fully understand the world in which he lives. So that self-explanatory says the importance of space technology. We want to look at Earth observation in very brief perspective. Earth observation basically involves satellite imaging, aerial photography, in situ sensors, mobile telephone, and now drones. Next. That's the historical development of space science and technology, from balloons to now drones. So there has been a very significant development in this science. Currently, we have over 100,000 satellites in space. And now even nanosatellites are quite many. It's estimated we have over 1 million in space today. Why do we want these satellites? Satellites provide us with data in real time, and data that is already digital, so you can access to it. But why do we require it? We require it for decision making, planning and decision making. So when you look at all the geospatial technologies, space and allied geospatial technologies, you can see we have Earth observation, satellite communication, GIS and spatial analysis, space science and astronomy, and navigation and positioning. So this will be covered during this conference, so I don't want to deal on them at all. But that comes. So Earth observation, its uses in socio-economic development. We have a lot of uses, and communication, which is now crucial today on this planet, positioning and timing. We'll be spending more time on remote sensing, and mostly on remote sensing is mapping of our resources for decision making. And GIS is a very crucial component of the whole process. Next. Applications for decision making are many, and there are factors: agriculture, pollution, climate change, disaster management, ecosystem management, public health, water resources, weather forecasting, and all many other applications. Next. Space technology benefits the environmental monitoring, and we have all possibilities. And space technology provides the best option for environmental monitoring. Otherwise, other conventional methods, you cannot do environmental monitoring in real time. So we have so many applications. We have applications in satellite data, and this we have applied it. And I invite you to visit our booth. You will see how we have applied it. And we have applied it in various applications under agricultural management. Next. Equally in urbanization, our remote sensing is very, very crucial because you can be able to get data in real time and you can be able to analyze data digitally. Application natural resources is very, very important. And the satellite remote sensing is the key in managing and monitoring natural resources on this planet. Next. We have also disaster management. Next. We have also satellite technology in national security. And this is an area where I think is very crucial, and I don't want to go into it, but it's applied there very well. Next. So all these platforms present advantages and disadvantages, and I think this is one area that during this conference you'll be able to see the advantages and disadvantages of all these platforms. But in total, I can tell that platforms provide the best solutions that are very adjustable to user needs, but may have a high cost. But in the long term, it's more cost effective. Next. So let's go just briefly to what we have been able to do in Vihiga County, and I'll be very, very fast so that I create more time. We have, through the legal framework, which you have already been told, that already we have a legal framework under the County Government Act of 2012, which obligates all the counties to develop a county integrated development plan and to be able to do all the budgeting, planning, and decision making using that document. And to be able to do that, it obligates us to establish a GIS-based database system. So based on this legal framework and the presidential order of 2017, which established the Kenya Space Agency, we in Vihiga County, we were among the first, actually we were the first counties to establish this system using the law in place. And we did this in collaboration with various development partners. We worked with the ESRI, Airbus, FAO, European Union, and Locate IT, and was officially commissioned in 16th May 2019 by the Cabinet Secretary in charge of government, devolved government, who was Hon Eugene Wamalwa, who is now the Minister for Defense. So we have looked, I have listed the requirements for establishment of a fully fledged GIS laboratory running on satellite-based data. So I'll not go into those details. I think the slides, I'll leave them behind so that you can be able to interrogate them later. But basically, our system, our GIS system is all configured the way you have shown, we have seen, you can see on the figure there. We have GIS as the center that operates all the systems. And we get data from national government, county government, and data inputs from remote sensing, that's high-resolution satellite data. We can get fundamental data sets from the Ministry of Surveys and Mapping, Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, field data collection using GPS, and data mining, and recently we are using drones to collect data in real time. So that's how our system looks like. And this system is anchored on 3 principles. The first principle is we are looking for information. And this information to be able to create an initiative, a development initiative that is going to make a difference in the lives of people. And then from the initiative, we are looking for an impact. An impact, whatever initiative you undertake, must have an impact to the socio-economic status and life of the people. So those are the 3 principles we use in. And out of that, we have been able to develop a county development information system, which has all information systems in all sectors of our economy. And each of these information system is managed by the relevant department or the relevant directorate that manages it. So the GIS system integrates everything, and the owners of the data are there and they have rights to their own data. So we have more than 22 databases for various systems. Next. So we have had applications in many areas, so I'll not go into that. I said you can see it in our place. But you can see we have done it in health management. So we have now with dashboards which show all the information on health in real time, because this information we receive it on a daily basis. So we can also show it on a dashboard on a daily basis. And we have all the metadata on all our health facilities and what is going on in real time on every day. We have so many applications which I would not want to go into because of time constraints. And we are able to monitor, even when we are looking at maternal rates in maternal and child programs, we are able to monitor all our mothers who are pregnant in the whole county at any given time. And we are able to ensure that they go to antenatal clinic at the right time when it is expected. And when they are ready for delivery, we ensure that they go to hospital so that they deliver at the hospital. And because of that, for the last 2 years, we have only had one mortality rate of a mother. So we have all this. Now, when it comes, this is a very important slide I want to show. When it comes to building facilities, let's say in this case, health facilities, we use GIS to be able to decide where do we put health facility. Because as politicians, most of the times you want to put it next to your home. But in this case, with gap analysis, we are able to say, for example, in our case, we have said nobody should move more than 5 kilometers to a health facility. So with the gap analysis, we have done using all the health facilities we have. And therefore, we find gaps where we can put health facilities. And you can see in that map where the gaps are. And for that reason, we are very rational in our decision making, where we put our projects. Next. So we have also application in the environment, so I will not go into that. We are promoting various indigenous trees so that we can change the environment. So I think in a nutshell, I want to end there so that we can be able to discuss. For example, in the environment, we have mapped all our river resources, and we have also mapped all the riverine forests. And unfortunately, the riverine forests are eucalyptus, which are draining our rivers because they consume a lot of water. So now we have a big program to get rid of eucalyptus around all our riverine areas, so that we can now grow with plant bamboo trees to be able to retain and restore river systems. We also do planning for construction of roads, and we can map all of them wherever they are. So we have all these data sets everywhere. On agriculture, we have all our land parcels, and we know the farmers, and we know exactly the size, what they grow, and we have a database on each of the farmer. And through this, when we are doing giving free agricultural inputs, fertilizer and certified seed, we know how much to give and to which fertilizer. And we also have done soil analysis, so we know which fertilizer to give to the farmer. I think I'll stop there so that we can be able to move. The rest you can see it.
Thank you very much, His Excellency. We can see the great job that you're doing in Vihiga County. Now we know where to benchmark, right? Yes. Let's give him one healthy clap. One healthy clap is just one clap, like that. So one healthy clap, one more. Sosa, thank you. Hiya, basi. Thank you so much for that. Now, I want to see where does the developing countries, where are we, the developing countries in matters space technology. Ladies and gentlemen, many governments rely on the dedicated space agencies to coordinate activities, policies, and investments in the space sector. However, this has not been the case for the developing countries for many years. Now, in this next session, we want to look at the insights on just how the critical role of the space agencies in the space ecosystem, with a particular focus on these developing countries. And to take us through this session, I have the pleasure and the honor to invite Dr. Val Munsami, who is the Chancellor at the International Space University and the former CEO of the South Africa National Space Agency. Welcome, Dr. Munsami. All right.
Thank you, Session Chair, and good day, colleagues and friends. Really excited to be here, and I must commend the Kenyan Space Agency for this particular initiative. I think it's quite critical for sparking conversations that underpins your space program. So I've got the task of talking around the role of space agencies in developing countries. See if that works. Oh, this one. Ah, there. Okay, so on Monday and Tuesday, I had the pleasure of working with some of the colleagues in the Kenyan Space Agency, just re-looking at the national space policy, looking at revising and reviewing that. And one of the departure points when you're crafting space policies is that you have to think of it as being ancillary, meaning that it's not part of mainstream policy. In that, what I mean is that it's actually intended as an enabler to support other policy instruments. So to give you an example, right here, any government that it's worth its salt in terms of good governance has three key priorities it should be focusing on. On the first instance, it's looking at social progress, looking at the quality of life of its citizens. On the second instance, it's looking at economic growth, and obviously that looks at wealth creation. And in the third instance, it's environmental stewardship, so looking at the sustainable use of your natural resources. But I think what's important, sorry, there's a bit of feedback. I think what's important is that you have to consider the fact that these are intimately integrated to one another. So if you make policy choices around, let's say, social issues, it has impacts in maybe the economic or the environmental bubble that I've got up there. So you have to pay very careful attention in between those bubbles, so the alignment between the socio, the economic, and the environment. And right at the center, I put the sustainable development goals. So you're looking at sustainability, development, and growth of the country from socio-economic, environmental perspective. So in essence, space science and technology is meant to support the country in terms of delivering on various policy instruments. So you don't set up a space program for the sake of space program. It's not a Me Too strategy. It's meant for the development of your country or the region. So in terms of a space ecosystem, if you're building up a space program, we use the word ecosystem these days, it's a buzzword. Ultimately, the success of your space program is determined by the applications, the use of the products and services that come out of the various satellite platforms, the in-situ data, and so on. So we segmented in the classical way. It's Earth observation, communications, navigation, positioning, and timing, and space exploration. It covers astronomy, space science, and so on. So that's essentially the why aspect, is why you actually engage in a national space program. But in order to give effect to the delivery of those products and services, you have to ensure that there's some fundamental building blocks that are put in place. And so that's your human capital development. So you have to have academia plugged into this ecosystem in terms of developing postgraduate students at master's, PhD levels and so on, and technical staff as well. You have to have an industry, or at least start an industry that you can grow over time and matures. So the industry is a vital part of the space ecosystem. You also need the requisite infrastructure. So you have a space value chain from the satellite segment to the ground segment to the data segment, pushing out the products and services. So that's your infrastructure backbone. And lastly, you're going to have to engage in international partnerships. And we've given examples of Kenya, the KiboSat. You've leveraged on those partnerships to look at knowledge, inbound knowledge transfer. And then when you get to the daily operational activities at a space agency level, you've got to look at mission requirements, your enabling technologies, that's your research, your development, and your innovation. And then once you put satellites in orbit, you've got to look at your operations, and then your space applications. That's your products and services coming out of that pipeline. But ultimately, when you're starting off a space program, you've got to look at this ecosystem, and you put a frame around it, and you start off by making policy pronouncements, and that's the essential function of a space policy. And then you also have to have certain legislation. So for example, we have UN treaties and conventions, as an example. So in terms of the liability convention, if you have a private sector player that's launching a satellite, and if anything goes wrong, it's not the industry player who's responsible, it's actually the state. The state is held responsible. So to limit the liability to the state has to have certain regulations regulating and licensing certain space objects that go up. So you have to ensure the safety of that, so you limit the liability. And then when you get to a strategy perspective in terms of how you're going to navigate this ecosystem, that's when you set up a national space strategy. It kind of underpins or underscores the various thematic thrusts you're going to have in terms of your space program. So you could decide, we're not going to focus on going to the moon. It's a policy choice, it's a strategic choice. And once you put your strategy in place, you then have to look at your business models. And so when you're looking at it from a space agency perspective, your space agency is playing in this sandpit, essentially, and it's a central role that it takes up. But there are many other players in this ecosystem, but it has to coordinate and lead the development of the ecosystem. Now, you also have to take into account that over the decades, the space program, or the space landscape, has been changing. And if you think of pre-1957, when the first Sputnik was launched, a large part of space exploration was ground-based astronomy, essentially. But when Sputnik happened, that was space 1.0. But when Sputnik happened in 1957, that's when the space race started. So space 2.0 is the space race, which ultimately led to the Apollo missions. And then you saw the Mir space station and the International Space Station came on the scene. And then space 3.0 is international cooperation through the International Space Station. And now we're sitting in space 4.0, which has completely transformed the entire landscape, where you have academia and private sector being quite central to the ecosystem. I mean, you see even NASA, they don't undertake a lot of the activities internally, and there's still some, but a lot of that gets contracted out to the industry, to universities, and other research institutions, and so on. So the landscape has continuously changed over the decades. And the role of the space agency is essentially transforming as you speak. So when you think of developing countries or emerging countries, this is how I probably want to visualize this. If you're an emerging space nation, you've just planted a seed, and that's where you are. If you're a developing nation, you've planted the seed and you have a plant that's essentially thrusting out of the soil. But when you're a developed nation, your plant is much more mature. So emerging nations are just starting out. Developing nations have started out, but they're still gathering momentum. And then you have the developed nations. But in effect, developing nations are aspiring towards your right. And we also have a responsibility, like South Africa and Nigeria and the countries up here, is to work with countries that are just starting off on the starting block, to see how you can capacitate them as well. And so you've looked at the FDEV satellite. We talked about ARMC as an example. How do we collaborate and build that capacity on the continent? So there is a dual responsibility if you're sitting in the center. But let's understand also what are the key challenges that's actually affecting countries, emerging nations and developing nations. So the one is political support. The countries that are playing on your right-hand side, the developed nations, they've had political support from the highest office in the country. That's not necessarily the same in developing and emerging countries. So you have to garner the political support in order to create a national space program. And I'm talking about a viable, sustainable national space program. And the only way you can do that is to underscore the socio-economic benefits, because politicians want to see how these applications are going to affect the constituencies. And I'm quite glad for your presentation, Governor. But it also leads to a second problem, which is financial resourcing. If you don't have the political commitment, your financial resources put into these programs are actually suboptimal. But then that forces you to prioritize, and you might not meet the full mandate. So you kind of start off limping without the full financial backing as well. And then obviously that has a knock-on effect on your technology readiness level. If you don't have implementable programs on the ground, and that you haven't built up the expertise and the experience, then in terms of technology readiness level, you're going to be falling short. So you're going to look elsewhere to international partners for technology transfer. And that also talks to human capital in terms of knowledge transfer. So the keyboard set as an example, you've set up students to go and gain that experience through a particular mission. And in some instances, like in South Africa, we had universities doing science missions, space missions of satellites. And that helped us to develop postgraduate students. And then you have to have the infrastructure. And so you have to look at code development. And a classic example is FDev, right? So you collaborating to co-develop a particular part of the infrastructure. A classic example of how collaboration comes into play. So just my last slide. In terms of the preamble that I've just given you, what is the role of space agencies? So first of all, the first role is to ensure the delivery on national policy priorities, the social, the economic, and the environmental priorities of the country. So in Kenya, you have Vision 2030. And so you have to see how a space program plugs in terms of delivering into that. The second role is to help to the role of the space agencies to help to shape, develop, and grow the space ecosystem that I've just put up in a few slides ago. And the third one is to ensure that you have robust programs on capacity building so that you can have a sustainable space ecosystem. Because if you don't build your human capital, essentially you're going to rely on exporting your technology. So if you want an indigenous space program, that's what the agency has to be fully committed to. And then lastly, I see the role in the current context, especially in terms of Space 4.0, is to consider the space value chain or the infrastructure as a backbone. What I mean by that is that if you look at the satellite data ground segment and the data segment, and then coming to your products and services, if the agency is responsible for some core part of the infrastructure, it can then contract industry and universities and so on upstream to build satellites. So you're stimulating the industry. And then when you go downstream in terms of applications, you can there again contract industry to build products and services, but you provide the backbone. So in that way, you're stimulating the industry and the space economy as well. So let me pause there. That was my last slide. I think I've got 24 seconds left. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Msami. Those were very valuable insights there. We now know where the developing countries lie in terms of space science. Let's appreciate him once more. My healthy clap. My healthy clap. Another. SOSA. Yeah. Wakenya tunajua SOSA ni nini. Okay. So if you don't know what SOSA is, please make sure, please Kenyans, please make sure the guest sitting next to you understands what SOSA is. Yeah. Now we are getting into the plenary session. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being good listeners, very attentive. But if you look at your program, this session was supposed to have ended already in about 14 minutes ago. But we need to get questions, we need to get those answers from our panelists and speakers. So we'll try and squeeze in as much time as we want. So please get ready with your questions, because we'll be picking questions from the floor as we get answers from our panelists here. Just to let you know that this, the Wi-Fi password is Kenya space, Kenya, that is capital capital K, that is Kenya space 22, Wi-Fi. If you need to communicate with your friends and, you know, from all over the world, just let them know that you are attending the Kenya Space Expo and Conference 2022. Use the hashtag Kenya Space 2022 to tweet. Just let your people know what is going on here. So we're going right into the question and answer session. If I could please get the seat. So get ready with your questions. We'll be having a roaming mic after this, so your questions will be answered by our very able panelists and speakers. Can you see me? Yes, you can. All right, so we begin. I begin with you, Dr. Nkurunziza. What are the current projects and activities that are being prioritized in the space agency in your organization, sir? Let's try to be real quick with the mics to save time.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I also wish to congratulate our Kenya Space Agency for hosting us. My name is once again Emmanuel Nkurunziza. I'm the Director General of the Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development. It's an intergovernmental organization. I think Dr. Tichiro mentioned it. He's an emeritus DG of the same institute. It has been based here in Kenya for the past 47 years and has 20 member states from Sudan up to South Africa. I come from Rwanda myself. So quickly to the question you asked, the center is involved in several activities. It was mainly set up to support these countries in leveraging the potential of Earth observation and geospatial technologies in different sectors. So we have projects in virtually all these sectors that they have mentioned. We have projects in agriculture and food security running here both in Kenya and in the other member states, whether it is in crop monitoring, yield estimation, regional food balance sheets, and we work with different partners. We have one program we are working with NASA, the space agency in the US, where they have their hub for Eastern and Southern Africa at our center. And it's been there for now almost 15 years. So we work with countries to use remote sense data to monitor crop and estimate yields in advance so that you can be able to plan. Across the COMESA region, we are developing regional food balance sheets so that you can know which foodstuffs are going to be available when and where the shortcomings are going to be. We are also involved in hazard mapping across Kenya, for example, especially in the semi-arid areas. Again, using remote sense data to map the hazards that are likely to be experienced. Quickly, we are also in disaster mitigation. The center has just set up an early warning, flood early warning system in Malawi, which, according to recent media reports, was able to save lives. It is community-based, and each time there is a potential disaster, flooding, people are alerted. So there was media reporting last month of how many lives were saved because of these systems. We also are involved in a program under GMS, I think somebody mentioned, the Global Monitoring for Environment and Security with African Union Commission. We lead a consortium that is undertaking analysis in land degradation monitoring, wetland monitoring, and establishing vector data bases. We're also working with the International Union for Conservation of Nature in supporting biodiversity. We have established a regional resource hub that helps in the management of protected areas across 24 countries on the African continent. So the projects are many, but we work mainly in agriculture and food security, weather and climate, land use, land cover, and ecosystems. Then we also supporting several sectors, especially in establishing geoportals. We have a group of software developers who are helping to link the geospatial data we are collecting to applications, bringing together IT and geospatial technologies. So that's just a synopsis of the big portfolio that we have, and we work with several partners, including Digital Earth Africa, who are here, that we work with, FAO, who we've worked with in developing natural resource atlases in Kenya, and providing capacity to people both at work and also new technicians. So we have a booth available at the exhibition area where we can share more of the programs. But I wish to reiterate that this is a center that belongs to the 20 countries. Kenya is the host government since 1975. We work through 2 ministries, and we are available in supporting countries both in advisory, project implementation, and research, both as well as capacity building. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nkurunziza, for those very important remarks. To you, Dr. Elkosi, what are the projects and activities that you're prioritizing in your organization at the space agency in your country, sir?
First, I want to thank Kenyan Space Agency for the good hospitality and well organization for this event to be conducted under the supervision of my friend Colonel Hilary. When I speak about the activities of the Egyptian Space Agency, we have many activities, some of them related to application of satellite data using artificial intelligence and machine learning. Others are related to space technology. But I wanted to take this chance to speak about 2 successful examples which had been conducted by the Egyptian Space Agency to disseminate space technology among the students. The first example was to disseminate this technology among university students. For this task, we developed a cube satellite. We call it educational cube satellite. Our task was to offer this cube satellite to 32 faculties. 32 faculties in Egypt. Till now, we offered 28 units, and by the end of this month, we will complete offering 32 units. Each unit will be the nucleus in each faculty to build a space lab for the students to practically deal with the satellite technology. This cube satellite will allow the student to conduct 37 experiments related to command and handling, telemetry, space environment. All these tasks can be done using this educational satellite kit or educational cube satellite. Moreover, we agreed to deliver this cube satellite to 5 African space agencies: Nigeria, Kenya, Sudan, Uganda, and Ghana. Yesterday, I agreed with the heads of this agency how to ship the kit to each of them. So in this case, I think that it will be a good experiment for them to follow the mechanism for disseminating this technology among the students in the universities. For the students in the secondary school, we developed what is called the CAN-SAT, for this student to know how to assemble the CAN-SAT and how to drop the CAN-SAT from a height, and then this CAN-SAT is provided with miniature camera. The student will take photos and see how to deal with the satellite photos in his small age. We already delivered this CAN-SAT to 19 schools. In Egypt, we have what is called school. STEM stands for science, technology, mathematics, and engineering. So now in Egypt, we have 19 dealing with space technology. I think from my point of view, these two experiences are very useful to communicate the student with the space technology. And we know that each one of us has some fear from the thing which he doesn't know. But once the student will deal with the space technology, he can make more innovations in this field. This, I think, and also the 5 African countries will follow the same experience and will give good results about the applications. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. For those very important remarks. Let's talk about policy and strategies, and my question goes to Colonel Kipkosgei. Are there any policies and strategies that currently you are exploring to nurture the growth and development of the space ecosystem in your country, in this case, Kenya, sir?
Thank you very much. We as the Kenya Space Agency, we realize that in Kenya, the space industry generally is at its infancy. And there is a lot that we feel need to be done in terms of capacity building. So developing that critical mass is one of the areas that we are focusing on in our strategy. In our 2020 to 2025 strategy, we identified 2 main lines of effort, and that is enhanced utilization of space services and space-derived data for better decision making and for socioeconomic development. But also, importantly, we feel that as a nation, we need also to develop our own national capability. And development of national capability is really it's a question of what is the best fit for Kenya. We realize that it is not possible for us to develop full capability to meet all our requirements. And also at the same time, we are not thinking of a situation where we will be forever dependent on services and applications developed from externally. So we feel that there is a responsibility on us to do that perfect balance, as well as enhancing utilization of space services, as has been demonstrated by Vihiga County, and through the programs that we are doing with our stakeholders like Agricultural and Food Authority, like Kenya Forestry Services, like even with the counties on physical planning. Those are just but examples of efforts to try and push the enhanced utilization. On the side of developing national space capability, we are doing activities and projects with our institutions of higher learning, the universities. You must have heard of the program on research grants, where we encourage our universities to do projects. The first satellite that we did was basically done by the University of Nairobi, and we are enhancing on that because that was a 1U. We are currently, with the universities, working on a 3U satellite. Alongside that, even on the side of startups, we are working with Sayari Labs, as has been mentioned, and we are expecting to put in space a 3U nanosatellite in partnership with Endurosat. That will be sometime early next year in February, hopefully. We are also not just limited to technologies, partnerships with our local entities. We are also having international cooperation as one key avenue of capacity building, and that's why you've heard of projects that we are having with our partner and friends here, Nigeria, Egypt, and many other nations. So it's not just with the African nations, also international partnerships with Italian Space Agency. So those are avenues that we are using to develop our national capability. We are also addressing the issue of bringing that or creating that interest in the young minds in our populace, just as a way of outreach to, demystify space, and through what an initiative that we are working on, the establishment of space clubs with our institutions at primary school and secondary schools. We hope also that will generate that interest in young fellows, so that they start taking interest in careers in space sciences and technologies. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Halilu, any strategies and policies in your country that you're currently exploring? Please take us through that.
Well, thank you very much. Like I would say, the space agency, the National Space Agency of Nigeria is about 23 years old. We have a policy document that is also old. Our act is about 12 years old. What we are currently doing is we are re-engineering our policy so that it will be people-driven, and also re-engineering the structure of the agency, because while the policies are old, I think we are at the stage of reviewing it, just where the Kenyan Space Agency is, because the world had moved on since the policy was created. The same thing in the case of the national strategy implementation, because the policy and implementation strategy must all go together. So we are looking at it, what requires to be reviewed, because in the policy is over 15 years old. It had never been reviewed. This is the stage when we are reviewing the policy. While we want to review the policy is to move to where the world is also moving, because we've been working all this while, re-engaging without necessarily going by the policy. Now we are saying, okay, where the world is, it has moved to smaller satellites to fulfill some of the needs. It has also identified some funding mechanism, because if we look at it, the government will always find it difficult to put all its resources in the satellite, but again, you have to develop a kind of strategy where you can get the investors' funds and then get the public to participate in the activities of the space, so that the space will grow. The policy is also supposed to liberalize the space sector. That is democratizing the space sector, so that you have a lot of people coming in, so that people will benefit from it. Again, looking at it, what will be the aspect that the state will deal with and that which the public will deal with? Definitely you have to find a strategy engaging or re-engaging with the public, so that you are going to have a robust activity. The space agency in Nigeria is a very wide space program, where you have about 7 centers, and you have various laboratories, about 9 laboratories. And they are doing a lot of things into astronomy, into transport and propulsion, and also into geodesy and designing and building of the satellites. So all these things are supposed to be captured in the new policy, because we have outgrown the old policy. We have also outgrown the strategy. So I think Kenya is not alone here dealing with working on the policy and strategy. I think Nigeria is also reworking, and it's as if we are starting all over, because we have outgrown the strategy, and the strategy is also old. The policy is also old. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for those very important remarks. Now, let's talk about Africa, and this question goes to you, His Excellency Dr. Wilbur Tichilo. What role do we envision that the space sector is going to play, or rather is playing, in the space sector in Africa, sir?
Thank you for that question. I think in Africa, we have a big stake in the space technology. And if we assess where we are in comparison to developed countries, we need to move with speed and catch up. Because as you saw the slides that were shown here, we are still growing. While the developed countries are already grown, they have aspirations on how to move forward. For us, we are still at the survival mode. So it is important that we take up drastic steps and be able to catch up with the rest of the world. And therefore, as my colleagues have clearly indicated, we need to put in the right policies so that we can be able to nurture and promote space technology in the fastest manner possible. But the key area is the area of capacity building. We need to put more emphasis on capacity building, because when you look at our education system, you find that more emphasis or more of our students are inclined to take liberal subjects. And the STEM subject, as we have heard from Egypt, they are always shunned by many of our students. And therefore, you find that without us focusing now on STEM subjects that will be able to build a capacity for us to embrace this technology, we shall also be left out. So for me, I would want to say that we in Africa, we need to move with speed. I know the African Union has already come up with a policy, African policy on space technology. And we need to implement that policy, but at the country level, we need to go further and impress the technology and move forward. So I believe we have a good opportunity, and we need mostly to use our universities to be able to carry out research, because I want to see more of our universities, more of our research institutions in this area, because there's a lot of research that has to be done. So we have a lot of opportunity, and this is an opportunity we cannot leave, because the rest of the world is now raring to go into space, colonize the space. But if we are not careful, we shall be left on this planet, while the rest will be in the other planets.
Thank you so much, Dr. Thank you very much. To you, Dr. Munsami, the role that you envision, the space sector in Africa, sir.
No, thanks for that question. So, just pre-2015, Africa developed a common African position through NEPAD, and that was used as a working paper towards the Agenda 2063, which interestingly enough was also a working paper for the SDGs. So the SDGs has 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Agenda 2063 has 20 goals, and there's not much difference between the two. So if you look at it from, let's say, the AU vision point of view, the African Union Commission, you've got 8 or 9 commissions. And actually we did a rough study. If you look at the objectives of each of those commissions and you ask yourself, how many of those objectives actually require space science and technology? You come close to 90% of those objectives actually requiring space science and technology. So you've got to understand that space science and technology is critical for socio-economic environmental development. So when we developed the policy and the strategy, we were talking about an African Space Agency that will coordinate a lot of these activities across the continent. But it also requires, if you read the policy very carefully, you've got to bootstrap and leverage what's already happening at national and regional levels as well. So you're not going to duplicate necessarily what's existing on the ground. And I think that model still needs to play out because we haven't fully established. I know Egypt is ready to host, but we need to move in terms of establishing the African Space Agency. But it also means that we have to self-organize as space agencies to be able to play a leading role in that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had it. Thank you, my panelists. You've been very good with saving time. I really appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, now we're going into the question and answer. We'll be picking questions from the floor. As we've had it, Africa, we have a chance. Just depends on how you take that opportunity. In Kenya, as our kids are making those scarecrows at the CBC, the curriculum CBC, they can also learn how to assemble a robot at that level. It's possible. It's happened in other countries. It's working in other countries. Kenya and Africa at large, there's a chance, and this is the time. We should not always just lag behind. So are we ready with the mics? Are we ready to pick your questions? Please raise your hand, and the mic will get to you. Ask a question. You can be specific with whom you would want your question answered by, or just throw a random question, then any of the panelists will pick it. Thank you. Will be the first. Thank you, ma'am. Is first question, then sir. Okay. What do we start with? Him, then the lady. Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for a very eloquent presentation. Very impressed by the panel members, and also the governor as well, for an outstanding emphasis on aerospace engineering. I would like to emblem this under aerospace engineering. My name is Professor Engineer Hamir. I'm the acting director of the School of Aerospace and Vehicle Engineering at the Technical University of Kenya. And one of our departments is on space systems engineering, which we want to capacitate, as the governor had said. And in the presentation, there was this taxonomy or technology readiness levels, space 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. And that is very much tied to the fourth industrial revolution. And I just wanted to bring this to the board now. We have people from KCA on board. We don't have the design element of building our own. For instance, Relativity Space in the US, of course, it's a small company and founded by just two aspiring students, and they built a Terran 1 3D printed rocket, fully 3D printed. And 3D printing is one of those technologies that fits into the fourth industrial revolution as one of the disruptive technologies. So my question here now is for the panelists to address some of those things. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Isabel. I work for the Communications Authority of Kenya. And in the current circumstances, and everybody is feeling it, I'm very sure, after yesterday's announcement of the new cost of fuel, the immediate requirements for all citizens, especially for the low-income countries and developing countries, now may not be in this whole business of new technologies, and we have so many other emergencies. We do not know how long the inflation is going to last. We've just come out of a pandemic that doesn't seem to cease. And so my question is to all the panelists. From a regulatory point of view, most developing countries tend to adopt or domicile standards and regulatory policies and guidelines from other countries. So how can countries which have worse problems in terms of income, in terms of sustainability, in terms of crisis, like war, for instance, floods, for instance, what do you do with the content that you collect? I mean, the kind of data that you collect, because we've had a lot of foreign space operators carrying out a lot of studies. But what do you do with that content in the situation where we are? Where our priorities really right now are more towards dealing with the current issues of inflation and COVID and many other things that are yet to come. We know the advantages of all these satellite networks and the new technologies that come with it. We appreciate them, they help us, but how are you going to assist that Mama Mboga or that person in northern Kenya who is dying of starvation? There are a lot of banditry events happening, insecurity and those kind of things. So I just want to get a sort of bird's eye view of how all these satellite developments are going to assist us sort out our current problems as we move forward now, maybe not at the same speed with the developed nations, but at least to move in that one direction, rather than moving in divergent directions where we do not even share problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll take those 2 questions for now, and I'll try to squeeze in a few more. If you get a chance to ask a question, would you please go straight to the question so that the 2 minutes that you are using to explain can be used by someone else to ask a question. So please, gentlemen, any of us who can take those 2 questions. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I was I picked interest in the last question. Because this has always been the question that one of the questions that were asked anytime a developing country wants to go into space technology. The question is, people are hungry. Why are you going into space? And I think that is what she's trying to say. Marrying the policy or what we are saying. Now, it is apparent. I will start by saying, looking at a situation where you have, you are a mother. You don't know how many people reside in the family, in the house. How do you make preparation for their meal, and how do you engage them? For example, how many children are there that don't eat adult meals? How many adults are there that don't eat children's meal? You have to have a good knowledge before you can get to where you are going to. And giving example of Kenya, when M-Pesa started, how many people ever believed that it could help a farmer so that he doesn't move within this? So we are talking about all engaging, because space is all engaging. The world is moving into Internet of Things. The world is moving, and Africa cannot be stagnated because it is poor. We are now saying, what is the technology that we can leverage on so that it lifts us out of poverty? Now, we are glad today we had an example from Viga County, where all the farmers are documented. There is a database about the farmers. When new technology comes, the agri-extension officer needs this kind of data to reach each farmer. Now, imagine how it is helping the pregnant women so that they attend their antenatal. So you cannot take it away from the suffering economy now. We are now saying that there is a vehicle that will move you from 11th century economy into the century that you are living now, and even 25th century economy. And if you don't start now, it's going to be more costly, because you don't expect other people to invest in research in the space sector and you just go and get the benefit for nothing. You have to be part of it. And for you to predict the future, you have to be part of building the future. And we are saying that we want to leverage on this space technology as a vehicle. Because the question is, if I can fly, why do I want to jump? Because that's what we are talking about. And that's why to so many people, space sector looks like an alien technology. Most technologies will leverage on the space technology. And that's what we are simply saying. So we are now saying, okay, for most of our economic development, we can use space technology for economic development. And talking about insecurity, I can give you the case of Nigeria. You should know that remote sensing, that is space technology, began with the military. That was in preparation for the world wars that will come. And the idea of communication also started with the military within the space technology. Why? It is meant for security purposes from the beginning. So what we are now trying to do, especially in Nigeria, because if you speak about insecurity, I think Nigeria will always show a kind of red light anytime you speak about insecurity in Africa. Nigeria is one of the flashpoints, red light areas, and I can tell you that based on distance, you need information about where the bandits are, what they are carrying, where they struck, and what is the pattern of their activities. And this brings about a lot of activities coming in into the space arena. And that is why you see that while other African countries are thinking about building their own space industry, especially within the commercial, within the private, civil sector, Nigeria has Defense Space Administration. the military were able to provide their own space. Because just like in engineering, we say this is a military-grade engineering, the kind of data that is required by the military is also different. Now, we are talking about artificial intelligence. All these things are going to be harboring on this. Digital economy, one of the crises in Africa, we must say this whether we like it or not, is corruption. Digital economy, digitizing all facilities, will definitely reduce some of the crises we are talking about in Africa. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Yes, Dr. Otichilo would like to. Yes, please, can I have a mic for Dr. Otichilo? Yes, we try to answer as many questions as possible because of the constraint of time.
Thank you. I want to start where my brother from Nigeria left. Our county governments are based on the principle of devolution. And the devolution aims to have the local people make decisions about their lives. So for the local people to participate in decision making and planning, they need information. But when you go down, now like me who is practicing, you find when we get people to participate in decision making, they do not have information. But our experiment with using high resolution satellite data has shown that once you provide information, high resolution satellite data, to the local communities who have never even gone to school, once they discover where their church is, where the road to the home is, all of a sudden you discover they know they can interpret the image very easily. And they start now realizing what is around them because they are just used to their village. But the moment you give them the image, they start understanding. So it is important that we must introduce this technology so that the people at the grassroots level can make decisions about their lives themselves. But right now, they are making the decisions based on nothing, based on what their local leader has told them that this is what is required. But in essence, what they are saying they require, they may not require. So we need to bring this technology to the village level. Recently, we worked with Google Earth in Vihiga to set up a local address based on satellite technology and the Google system. And we found out that people were very excited when they discovered where their homes were on the high resolution satellite data. And they were very enthusiastic to have them mapped and be given a code so that you can reach their home from anywhere in the world. So I think technology is important, but what we need is to simplify it. This technology was only in the high technology, highly learned people, but this technology can be brought to the grassroots. And I can tell you, it can work without any problem. On the issue raised by my colleague here from the university, I think is right. We need now to liberalize this technology because it started in the military. And there has been this feeling that it should be all domiciled in the military. But now remote sensing space technology is open-ended. And we should be able now to liberalize it. Let's have all our institutions, our research institutions come in. Let's have in the decision-making bodies or under space agency, let's have the people from outside the military or the defense so that we can have an open system. Finally, we legislated on the Science, Technology and Innovation Act in 2012, which allows Kenya to allocate at least 2.5% of its GDP to research and innovation. So as a country, we need to ensure that we follow that law and allocate that money. And if we do allocate 2.5% of our GDP, we will have enough money to carry out all the research we require in this area.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Any two very burning questions? Because yes, ma'am, behind there, and gentlemen, please note that our panelists will be available for any follow-up questions. I know we have a lot of questions, we would have wanted them to be answered here, but we also don't want to keep you here for too long because we need to take a break and come back for the next session fresh. And I know our energies are going down, so Please, ma'am, real quick, direct to the point.
Okay, thank you. Mine is mostly on sensitization and visibility. It's one thing to bring the technologies here, but it's another thing to have us understand what they're all about on all levels, grassroots included. So I just wanted to know, do we have plans to make this information available in our learning institutions? Do we have conversations going on? And also at the same time, will these studies be available to everyone, marginalized groups and everyone all over the country? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Dan Odido from Moi University. I was quite impressed by the presentations, especially by the governor. And my question is to him, why don't we see such things in other counties? And of course, there was also the question about security and so on. Of course, we all know that these technologies can be very good for security also. So there's a COG, a Committee of Governors, I think. How come these things are not there elsewhere? Thank you.
Sir, please, the mic. Is it on?
Thank you very much. I want to put a question to the panel. The issue of debris from the space, the risks and threats to Africa. Are we going to end up being the dustbin? Is Africa going to end up being the dustbin of satellite technology? Number two, are there ethical issues in this research technology? The ethical is important because we have got young people coming in. So how do we manage the ethical issues that are going to arise, I believe, very soon? For example, can military technology based on satellite be used to kill civilians? Is that an ethical issue? The Iran issue, Iran leader issue was killed in Iraq. All these ethical issues. What are we, as we start with our small space programs, doing to also encourage the young people to think about the ethical issues of space technology?
All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. Our sound team, please do something about those mics so we don't waste a minute. Please, any responses to those three questions?
Yeah, I want to respond to the first question. And if I got it right, it is about sensitization and what are we doing in terms of passing the message down to the public. This particular conference is the first one, but it is actually a step in that towards that endeavor to ensure that the conversation is to ensure that the conversation is expanded beyond just the stakeholders. So I agree that there's a lot that needs to go out in terms of getting the public to appreciate and to understand. And this is one of the small steps that we are taking. We'll definitely need to do more in terms of sensitization. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to add to what the DG has just said. As RCMLD, or regional center, we do sensitization across our member states. We've just concluded open day sessions in Uganda and Rwanda, where we bring all stakeholders that use our services to show them what is available and what we are doing, and we intend to do that across our membership. Beyond that, I think just as our colleague from Egypt mentioned, we are working with secondary schools. We have a program called Space Challenge, where we work with secondary schools in our region. We get teachers, train them. We select schools across the country, in Kenya here, in Uganda, Rwanda, Ethiopia. Train them in using some of this data, knowing the data, and making some products. We organize competitions. Then at the national level, we are able to award prizes just to encourage these people to take up careers in these areas. Then next year, we are going to have a regional competition, now bringing together Rwanda, Kenya, Uganda, secondary schools with their projects. Beyond that, we have also established a program called KUZA, or mentorship program in universities. So we've set up clubs in Makerere University, University of Rwanda, and then across the country here, all aimed at really developing the interest in these areas and them knowing the opportunities that are available. So all these space agencies are growing up, but they'll need these people. So we need to prepare them so that they have the critical mass they require to make them functional. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay. If I would just add a little to what was said. We also have African Regional Center for Space Science and Education in Nigeria, and most Kenyans have been part of that. I also see one of the staff of Kenya Space Agency. He was there in 2019, and this outfit also organized some of the programs for the African English speaking. That is AXTI, African Regional Center for Space Science and Education in English. And apart from that, I think the second question is saying if the information is available in the areas of security. These are the kind of questions the media and the Nigerians are asking us all the time. And we know there are certain things we cannot do. Security information is security information and is not available for the public consumption. I, as a DG of a space agency, cannot tell any media organization what we do with the military. It's not done. The same information the military is using, if you make it available to the public, can also be used against the citizens. So you have a lot of people asking you, why can't you tell them what you are doing with the military? And we say, if you want to know, go to the military, because we know that when they go to the military, I always make this joke. I say, even when a military man writes a love letter, he will put restricted at the bottom. So definitely, you cannot ask me on the face of a television and ask me to tell you what I'm doing with the military. What the military is doing is for your own safety, for your own security, and he cannot make it a public document. So these are some areas where we have a lot of issues all the time. But I can tell you, they are using the technology, and also the bad people are also using the technology. So these are areas where definitely we have to depart. And the Honorable Minister asked about ethical issues. I saw something about the law, the space law here. I don't know whether Dr. Val will want to speak about it, because he has served in that community, in that committee. He has done so well in that committee. Maybe he can talk about that ethics.
No, thanks, Halilu. And exactly to the question the Chief Secretary of Defense has asked around the ethical issues. So just to take it from a perspective of the Outer Space Treaty, the United Nations Outer Space Treaty, so using space applications for defense purposes is not necessarily non-peaceful. Where it becomes non-peaceful is when you try to weaponize space or put weapons into space. And that becomes problematic, and that's where the ethical issue creeps in. Another issue that's quite controversial is anti-satellite tests, where you blast a missile and you try to hit a satellite and you break it up into pieces, then that introduces space debris. And so because of that, the UN set up a committee to look at the long-term sustainability of space, to limit the potential for collisions in space. So space situational awareness is quite critical for us because you want to ensure that for future generations you have access to low Earth orbit or even geostationary orbit and so on. And I think the legal instruments also has to be beefed up at a national level based on the UN treaties and conventions. So for example, if an aircraft crashes, from a legal perspective we use what is called strict-based liability. There's a formula that's used where you compensate the passengers or the families of the passengers who were killed. In space it's different. It's fault-based liability. You have to prove whose fault it is in order to claim liability. And that's why situational awareness from a country perspective is very important. And space weather, for example, is part of the guidelines, international guidelines for long-term sustainability. So weaponization of space is a no-no. Countries try to do that. And the anti-satellite tests we see every time that happens, like India, Russia, China blasted a satellite in orbit, there's a public outcry. So there's an ethical issue. So I think it's trying to test the treaties and conventions, and I think even there we need to start looking at revisions from a legislation point of view. I don't think we're keeping up with the times.
Yes, there was a question which was directed to me and I want to answer it. Despite of us having a legal provision by all counties to adopt the space science technology and GIS, most counties have not adopted that technology. And the reason has been technology has been seen as something that is not required as an urgent matter. Leaders seem to think that building a school or a health center is more important than spending money to build an infrastructure that will create information for you. So that has been one of the big problems. But in every initiative, you need a champion. And luckily enough, since when I was elected a governor, I have worked very closely with my colleagues and I've been able to convince them why it is important that they use science and technology as a leverage to all our development endeavors. And since we have already set ourselves a system that works, we have encouraged all other departments, all other counties to benchmark in our county, and we are offering them some training. And I'm happy FAO is here, Husna is here. FAO has agreed to sponsor all the other counties to come to Vihiga to be able to see what we are doing, and we have agreed with them that after that we do training for them. And I can assure you that quite a number, so far we have had about 24 counties who have done benchmarking in our county, and they are already in the process of now putting up systems for them to adopt this technology. And FAO and European Union have already come up with a project which will be helping the rest of the counties.
Thank you. All right, yes, thank you so much, gentlemen, and thank you, delegates. We have to close this session, but before we do that, can we have just a minute of any concluding remarks from the panelists? A minute each, please. We'll start with you, Dr. Nkurunziza.
Thank you very much. Once again for inviting us to be part of this session. It's a pleasure as a regional center for mapping to see our member states developing their own space agencies. So we cannot have too many players in this field because the potential that is available from Earth observation and geospatial technologies is enormous. And I always call upon all of us, let's do all we can and make sure the fourth industrial revolution as our guest of honor mentioned, does not leave us just like the Industrial Revolution left us so many decades ago. So all you have to do is apply our minds and we'll be able to participate like every other nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I thank the Kenyan Space Agency for this meeting, for this Expo and conference. It is coming on the heel of the meeting for the African space, African satellite development, where we are thinking about climate change. It is when we meet like this that we find a common problem in Africa and think about developing a satellite that will solve African problem. We don't expect anybody to come and solve your problems. Since you are the one living in the problems, you have to speak together to identify one thing you can do together to solve that unique problem that we are having. Two, in a conference like this, we get to know the activities various space agencies are engaged in so that we can leverage on it. And you can see that is the topic of the conference. What I will only encourage us to do is to attend the conference to the end so that we can benefit. So many questions that were raised here will be answered in one or two of these panels. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I want to congratulate the Kenya Space Agency for this successful opening of the conference, and I have full confidence that the next 2 days will have the same success.
Thank you, sir.
As for me, at the Space Agency, we of course acknowledge that we need a lot of investment from government. We need resources to be able to make the necessary investments so that we're able to accrue from the benefits. From the sessions, obviously, I think what has come out is that there is a lot that we can benefit from. There are a lot of questions on whether it is even necessary to develop satellites. We hope in the course of our conversations we'll be able to see the sense in investing in space sciences and technologies, because that is really the way to go, and we'll be able to recoup on the benefits. We are also open to investments from the international partners, whether it be in development of vertical infrastructure. We know that Kenya was once a launching site. We are still very keen on having conversations around establishment of a spaceport and many other facilities, ground infrastructure, whether it be in space traffic management or any other areas of interest. We are willing to listen, and we are looking forward to those interactions. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel.
Just as a parting remark, there's normally a slide that I put up where it shows that if you put the US, Europe, and China together, the land surface area of Africa is still larger than all of them put together. Now, there's 2 points that I normally make with that slide. One is it emphasizes the scale problem we have in Africa in terms of social, economic, environmental issues that we have to deal with. Secondly, if you look at budgets, I think in Africa it's not even coming close to $100 million, whereas if you look at the rest, you're talking about 60 to $100 billion. So there's a mismatch. So we can never expect to harvest the benefits of space science and technology if we don't have the political commitment and we don't put the financial resources in this. So I think that's what we need to secure going forward.
Thank you so much. His Excellency Governor.
I wish to take this opportunity to thank the Kenya Space Agency for convening this conference. This is a very important step towards moving in the right direction. Secondly, I want to say that Kenya Space Agency, you need to be open so that we can have all Kenyans know what Kenya Space Agency can do. And in this regard, I would recommend that you come up with a very aggressive outreach program to let Kenyans know what space space technology can offer, and particularly at the school level. If you can have, for example, a radio program which targets young people, because young people will be very interested to know what is in space and what can be done. And finally, I would like to recommend that since the county governments, the 47 county governments, we are the ones implementing all these projects, all these sectors where space technology is applied, they are implemented at the county level. I would recommend that you engage the Council of Governors so that we have an MOU with you so that you can now be able to promote this technology right to the people who practice and the governors who make the decisions, because that's the way we can be able to bring this technology to the lowest level possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, His Excellency, and thank you, gentlemen, for your very valuable time and those insights. I appreciate, please, let's get back to our seats as we appreciate them with a shower of claps. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you so much. You see, in Africa, we say it's only the wearer of the shoe who knows where it hurts the most. Africa, we're the ones who know where the problem is. Before we cry out for help in the countries that are doing great in matters space science and technology, we know where the problem is, so we can. Sorry, sir. Oh, sorry. Sorry. I hope you're okay, sir. Sorry. All right. Okay. All right. So, like I was saying, Africa, we're the ones who know where the problem is. So, before we cry out for help or we seek help from Europe, America, Asia, you know where the problem is, and we're the only ones who can initiate the solutions to this problem. So, right about now, we are about to go for our health break. But before we do that, we have a small token for our keynote speakers. So, again, I would like to invite His Excellency Dr. Wilbur Tichilo. Please come up front. And Dr. Val Munsami. We have a small token for you as an appreciation for the keynote speakers. Thank you so much, and every panelist who's here. I hope are we learning or we are bored? Are we? No, we are not. Surely we are not. I am not, so you shouldn't be. Okay, so I would like to invite Colonel Kipkos Gay. Please come and hand over. Thank you, sir. All right. We start with Governor, His Excellency.
And sharing with us insights and experience on utilizing space technologies for socioeconomic development. Please accept this small token of appreciation from the Kenya Space Agency. Thank you, sir.
All right, we have one more, sir.
Dr. Mansami, we also have a very small token of appreciation. This is an endangered species. We don't know whether it is in your part of your country, but please accept this as a small token of appreciation from Kenya Space Agency. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right, another round of applause, please. Okay, so we are ready for a break. As you can see, we are behind time. We're supposed to be back here at 2. By my time is 1:19, 20, depends on your watch. But can we try and be here at 2? Can we grab our lunch real quick? I hope so. So we are heading to the next session, which is a health break. Please grab your lunch real quick, then you can be here at 2 for the next session. We still have a lot to discuss. We have a lot to learn. And during your break, please make time to visit the booth. There's a lot of innovation showcasing out there. Make sure you get to see, interact with those at the booth, ask questions. And you can grab any of the panelists who are here and ask the questions. I know we couldn't pick all of them, but they're all available. So thank you, and enjoy your lunch.
It is my honor to speak in the opening of this event. First of all, hello everybody. I'm Yasuo Ishii, Vice President of JAXA, Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. It is my honor to speak in the opening of this event. First of all, I'd like to celebrate this inaugural event, and I would extend my sincere respect to the Kenya Space Agency for organizing this event. JAXA and Kenya has developed very good relationships through Kibo Cube program. The Kibo Cube is UN-Japan cooperation program on CubeSat deployment from the Japanese experiment module Kibo of the International Space Station since 2015.